This is Radio Prague International coming to you from the Czech capital.
Hello and welcome. I'm Romana Grajcarova and you're listening to Czechia in 30 minutes, the show where we give you a rundown of what's recently been happening in the country in just half an hour. Coming up on today, NATO summit dispute linked to next presidential election, Prague to boast one of Europe's longest street art murals, and Ostrava Zoo, home to 451 species, including some extinct in the wild. All that in just a few minutes, but first, here is some of today's top headlines.
News.
12 EU member states, led by the Czech Republic, are urging the European Commission to postpone key provisions of the new methane emissions regulation by at least 3 years. The countries argue that the delay is necessary to safeguard Europe's energy security amid ongoing geopolitical instability. The Czech proposal will be discussed today at a meeting of EU energy ministries in Luxembourg. The regulation on methane emissions in the energy sector is due to take effect on the 1st of January 2027. Under the rules, importers of fossil fuels will be required to submit detailed, independently verified annual reports to the relevant national authorities on the methane emissions associated with the energy they supply. According to the Czech Republic, however, compliance will be difficult because of a shortage of qualified verifiers and measurement experts in third countries. A law aimed at making it easier to replace civil servants and bringing the rules of their employment closer to the labor code was approved today by the Chamber of Deputies with votes from ruling coalition lawmakers. The opposition, as expected, failed to push through a rejection of the bill, which it says politicizes the civil service and prioritizes loyalty over expertise. The widespread power outage that affected parts of Czechia last July was caused by a combination of several unrelated technical and operational incidents, a group of international experts said, confirming the findings of last year's investigation by the Czech power grid operator. To help prevent similar incidents, the experts also recommended tightening certain grid operation standards, expanding preventive measures, and revising some operational procedures. The massive power outage on the 4th of July last year, which lasted several hours, affected about 1 million of the Czech Republic's 6.3 million electricity consumers. Prague police arrested 2 men on Tuesday who were the subjects of nationwide wanted notices. The first had been convicted, though the verdict is not yet final, of sexual offences and was preparing to travel to Central America. The second had failed to report to prison to serve a sentence for drug-related crimes. In both cases, officers obtained information while working in the field as part of their regular duties. After assessing the intelligence, they were able to locate and apprehend both individuals, police spokesperson Jan Rymanský said. With ongoing climate change, summer can be just as dangerous as winter in terms of risks to life and health for people without housing, and this situation is expected to worsen in the future. The regional director for Bohemia at the Salvation Army, Jan Desenský, told Czech press agency. He said systemic measures similar to those implemented by cities in winter should be introduced in response. Field workers are currently distributing water and inviting people without shelter to day centers. And now, let's look at the weather. Tomorrow, clear skies during the day. By evening, high cloud cover will appear in western Bohemia. The highest daytime temperatures will range from 34 degrees Celsius to 38 degrees Celsius, with isolated locations reaching up to 39 degrees Celsius. After the news bulletin, let's now look at the first story of today. Czech politics are currently dominated by a constitutional court ruling allowing President Pavel to attend a NATO summit next month, despite the Babiš government's efforts to block him. But what will actually happen in Ankara? Ian Willoughby discussed the situation with Otto Abel, a political scientist at Masaryk University.
The government seemed to deliberately leave an official decision on who would be in the delegation very late, evidently hoping the president wouldn't have time to take this matter to the Constitutional Court. Is it surprising that the court delivered a preliminary ruling very quickly?
It might be surprising, but, it was not deciding in a vacuum, and timing was part of the dispute, and it was quite obvious. So, as the accreditation deadline was approaching, and the government's previous handling of the matter created a situation in which any delayed judicial response might have made the president's participation practically impossible. So in that sense, the preliminary measure was not only a legal intervention, but also a response to a procedural strategy that risked deciding the case by delay rather than by constitutional arguments. So this is what happened.
And what should we make of the response of the government? Prime Minister Babiš said he respected what he called a quick ruling, while the Foreign Minister Petr Matsenka said that it was an attempt at a putsch or something like that.
Yeah, the current development already shows that many members of the government are not satisfied and happy with the outcome. They use emotional language, including the framing of the court's move as an attempted constitutional coup. And that suggests that at least Petr Matsenka is unlikely to seek the escalation of the whole situation. And on the contrary, it is reasonable to expect that Matsenka will look for ways to make the president's participation politically or practically uncomfortable.
Since the ruling, there has been a dispute over who should head the delegation. The president says it should be him, but there are also reports that the government are still planning to somehow sideline him in Ankara. How do you think things are most likely to play out at the summit?
Well, it's difficult to foresee the future, but I believe that President will play his role and he will be natural leader of the delegation, especially because he has ties to NATO and he knows all the delegates personally, but at the same time we will see attempts by the government representatives to play their roles as well. So it will be difficult and I'm afraid it will be awkward for most of the actors.
Otto, whoever is in the right over all of this, isn't there a large chance of embarrassment for Czechia in Ankara?
I hope that scenario will not fulfill and the embarrassment will be rather low. But, the whole world, at least the NATO countries are watching what is going on in the Czech Republic, and they clearly see that there is an ongoing conflict between the castle and the government. So, yes, at least for the domestic public, Petr Matsenka and perhaps some members of the government as well will do their best to sideline the president. But I hope that in Ankara everything will go well and the embarrassment will not take place.
And my final question is, where does this leave relations between the president and the government? Previously, Mr. Matsenka spoke about extreme cohabitation or something like that. Will it be kind of all-out war from now on, or do you think things will calm down?
I don't see any steps or attempts for calming down the situations. On the contrary, the Ankara summit is not the most important thing in the case or in the conflict between the castle and the government, between Petr Pavel and Petr Matsenka. It is a broader conflict about institutional boundaries. It is also a conflict about political culture and the future balance between the castle and the government. So this is important. This is what's going on. And we have to wait until the final ruling. It will take place in September, if I'm not mistaken, or later in autumn. So we have to wait, but there is no reason for Matsenka to take a few steps back and to calm the situation down. No. Unfortunately, we need to see the current situation as personal revenge to President Petr Pavel and as a part of preparations for the upcoming presidential elections. Because what they are saying, that Petr Pavel is taking these steps just because he is making his ground for his future campaign. This might be true, but also it is true that the government, Babiš, Matsenka, they are doing their best in securing their positions or preparing their position for a future campaign of the governmental candidate.
Ian Willoughby with that report. A huge concrete wall in Prague's Ruzyně district is being transformed into one of Europe's longest collaborative murals. 30 artists from Czechia and abroad are taking part in the project, which will become a permanent open-air gallery. Ruth Fraňková went to see the artists at work.
The 700-meter wall surrounds Ministry of Defense property along Vlastina Street in Prague's Ruzyně district. Until recently, it was just a long stretch of grey concrete topped with barbed wire. Now, sections of the wall are gradually filling with colour as artists work their way along it. The project, called Mural Ruzyně, is part of the biennial Urban Pictures Festival organised by the Chemistry Gallery in cooperation with the Prague 6 Municipal District. 30 artists from the Czech Republic and abroad were invited to create individual sections around the project's shared theme, the beauty of the city in motion. French artist Smoka interpreted it through the people who make a city come alive.
So, like my work is more based on human, I try to make something about people who live in the city more than the city itself. And so the movement is captured by a couple who is dancing in the city lights. And this is a human movement and not vehicle or architecture, because I like to create emotion when people see my murals. So I'm more based in the human, and the movement is dancing here.
The artists have spent the past days working through a scorching heat wave with daytime temperatures well above 30 degrees Celsius. Some sections are already almost complete, while others are still only sketched out. Smoka admits the heat has made painting physically demanding.
It's a bit exhausting in the afternoon. We have to make breaks, but it's better than rain, because with rain we can't paint. Here it's okay, and it's less hot here than in France. So for me it's okay. I couldn't paint in France, it's too hot here. It's okay, I can paint.
The large-scale mural was initiated by the Prague 6 Municipal District, but because the wall belongs to the Ministry of Defense, organisers first had to secure approval not only from the ministry itself, but also from the Military History Institute and Prague Airport. Putting together the team of artists was another challenge. According to one of the curators from the Chemistry Gallery, Petr Kopal, the Czech street art scene is relatively small, making it easier to identify the country's leading names, while many of the international participants had either approached the festival over the years or were discovered at mural festivals abroad. The organisers also had to decide how to approach such a long wall from a curatorial point of view.
In the beginning we had an idea that the paintings could go from abstract to hyperrealism. So we were working with a few artists, but then we realized that it would be too complicated even for the audience. They wouldn't maybe understand that this idea is behind it. So we decided to approach it only with realistic painting. Realistic, figurative, hyper-realistic, so it's much more readable for the audience, for the people who are living here or for the tourists who will come to visit this place.
Among the international artists taking part is Belfast-born Emmik, who approached the project's shared theme from a rather different perspective.
I've taken the idea of movement being something that is slow and the passage of time being something that's maybe in counter to the fast-paced sort of style of a city, you know, with cars and transport and people with busy lives and whatnot. So what I want for this mural is for it to evoke the essence of slowing down and taking time and being with nature and whatnot.
The Czech lineup includes some of the country's best-known street artists, among them Michal Škapa, Toybox and Chemis, whose work incorporates the wall itself into the composition.
I like to work with the architecture or structure of the walls, and the same I'm doing here. It looks like it's destruction, but as graffiti people can see it's a destruction. But in destruction we can also see the creation. So this wall will represent that it's missing the character, and after I'm gonna finish the character, it's gonna make sense afterwards.
Once complete, it will rank as Europe's third longest collaborative mural. It will also be treated with a special anti-graffiti coating to make it easier to remove any vandalism. Organisers say the project has already been receiving an overwhelmingly positive response from local residents.
We receive it every day, and in 99% it's very positive feedbacks. People are really happy that some piece of art like this is happening here, because before it was just a grey concrete wall. And like this, we hope that they will be proud to have the wall here.
The Chemistry Gallery also plans to organise guided walks along the wall's entire length. But perhaps the easiest way to experience the artwork is simply to hop on a tram and watch it unfold through the window.
Thank you to Ruth Fraňková for her story. Ostrava Zoo is home to over 6,000 animals from 451 species. Around 1/3 of these species are classified as threatened, and 7 are already extinct in the wild. The zoo not only helps to protect them in their natural environment, but breeds endangered birds and animals that are returned to the wild. Daniela Lazarova has more.
The early beginnings of Ostrava Zoo date back to the 1950s, but it was decades before the humble project developed into the modern zoological garden that it has become today. In 2004, the zoo joined the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and financial investment from the city of Ostrava ushered in a phase of rapid development. Today, Ostrava Zoo is not only an animal park, but also a thriving botanical garden. It is home to over 6,000 animals from 451 animal species. Around 1/3 of these species are classified as threatened and appear on the International Union of Conservation of Nature Red List. 7 are extinct in the wild. František Přibrský, head of the zoo's in-situ conservation department, explains the broad scope of the zoo's activities.
I'm the head of the in-situ conservation department, and our goal is to support, choose and develop the in-situ conservation project all around the world, and that's my work. But in the conservation in general, the Ostrava Zoo is doing much more. It's, for example, next to supporting the projects all around the world financially or by the time of the staff, we are, for example, breeding the endangered animals and providing them for reintroduction back to the wild. So there is more than 800 animals that we already provided to be released back to the wild. Next to this, we do a lot of education projects, science, and that's what the Ostrava Zoo do.
Can you mention some of the animals that Ostrava Zoo is helping to save? Maybe we should first explain, if you would explain the difference between in-situ projects and ex-situ.
Yeah, so the in-situ is protecting or somehow focusing on the animals that live in the place where they are coming from. So, for example, Kukang program is focusing on conservation of the lorises in Sumatra because they are from Sumatra. There are other animals, for example, the raccoon langurs, one of the 25 most endangered primate, which is living in the Vietnam. So we support the project protecting them in the Vietnam. Another is the one that is saving the antelopes derby in the Senegal, and different projects. And so this in situ, it means that we are helping them right in the nature. Ex situ, it's out of the nature. So it's, for example, conservation breeding. So if in the zoo we breed tigers or pigeons, then it's breeding ex situ out of their original habitat. So the zoo is protecting some animals by the breeding and some animals in the nature. For example, in the nature, next to the Delacour langurs, we protect in the Vietnam Tomkins snub-nosed monkeys, which also super endangered animals. Then we protect Sunda pangolins in Indonesia. Then songbird species from Indonesia. There is, for example, Hilneas maina, which is one of the most endangered myna species in the world. Then Goudet fish from the Mexico, for example, is the fish which were extinct in the Mexico, and now the universities together with the zoos and the scientists are releasing them back to the Mexican rivers. So we are also helping with these projects. Then yellow cardinal, that's the bird species from Argentina, and we are helping them with an organization called Tamaiken. That's also helping the animals from wildlife trade with rehabilitation and releasing back to the wild. And for example, we are also helping the corals in the Philippines. So that's NGO called Vesna Panglao Conservation, and this NGO is restoring and protecting the coral reefs. The corals are also animals, so it counts. So that's the few that we protect in the nature. And by the breeding in the zoo, we have a big group of the primates that are well bred in the zoo. So for example,
chimpanzees,
silver langurs, the Dainin monkeys, I hope I'm saying it well, the chimpanzees, yeah, and there is also few species which we are providing for releasing back to the wild. One of the most successful project is the beavered vulture reintroduction project in the Alps in the Europe. Then for example, we are providing northern balted ibis to Spain for releasing. And we, for example, provided links to for releasing back in the Slovakia in the past.
In addition to its own breeding successes, Ostrava Zoo plays a role in coordinating international conservation efforts. Right now, its specialists coordinate the European Endangered Species Programme for chimpanzees, as well as for life-bearing fish from the family of Poecilidae. Jana Pluháčková is chief zoologist at Ostrava Zoo and presently also coordinator of the European Programme for Chimpanzees, an ex situ programme managed by the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria. She explains what her duties and responsibilities are.
Well, I became the EP coordinator 5 years ago, and my responsibility is, in fact, to look after the captive population of the chimpanzees within the EAZA, which is European Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Of course, I'm not the only person doing that. That would be too much for one person. So I have two great vice coordinators, one assistant, and a whole species committee, which are colleagues from different zoos that, in fact, are like our board of trustees. So whatever decision we make, we need their approval or their opinion if that transfer is approved and they agree with that. So the fact is that we are recommending transfers of individuals, but we also give advice on the behavioral issues if they are in the group. If new facility is going to be built, we are responsible for checking the safety of the building and of course suitability from a welfare point of view. So we are all of that.
At Ostrava Zoo, Jana Pluháčková's primary concern is the zoo's own chimpanzee pavilion. She takes us around, points out individual members and explains the hierarchy and social workings of the group.
We have 10 chimpanzees at the moment, 2 adult males, 5 females and 3 young males from age 2 to 5. So these are going to stay in our group and will create the basic of our next breeding group. That is the way that chimpanzees live, in multi-male, multi-female groups, with males staying and the young females migrating and changing within the groups. That is the natural way. Our group is a bit special because our 2 males come from a quite difficult background, and their history is not so optimistic. One of them comes from a bachelor group in France, and unfortunately he doesn't know how to mate. He would like to, but he doesn't have that skill. And the second one comes even from the private breeder, so his situation was even more complicated because when he arrived he basically didn't know how to build a nest or what the vegetable is. He was looking for spaghetti and toilet. So it was work done by one of the Italian zoos that he was designed before he arrived here, destinated before he arrived here, and these colleagues helped us to socialize him a bit, and the rest of the socialization took place here in Ostrava, and luckily now he is able to mate and he is part of the group, so everything works fine. One male is the leader, the alpha male, and the second one is breeding one, so everything works fine.
The EEP aims to conserve viable captive populations of specific subspecies by managing breeding and population health to minimize inbreeding and maintain genetic diversity. Jana Pluháčková explains how she makes decisions regarding the distribution of individual chimpanzees in European zoos.
It's a not very complicated process, but of course it is influenced by several aspects. One of the very first one is the genetic one. That means if the animal is already overrepresented in the population, if she or he is related to the group coming in, or the inbreeding coefficient of that potential offspring is going to be, and if we need offspring from this combination. So this is the genetic part, but then we are also very cautious about the psychological part, because chimpanzees are very social animals, and the aspect of being introduced to a new group is very complicated. Well, not complicated if you know what you're doing. It needs your attention. So the thing that we are talking about is firstly if the individual is mature enough to leave the natal group, and also if the receiving group is suitable for new incomers, if the animal with its character is going to fit into the group and he's going to be well accepted, or if there will be some difficulties. If it concerns young female, we also pay attention to her, to the fact if she has got some breeding experience, not her own, but if she could witness breeding in her natal group, or if there is a necessity to bring her to group but she can get some know-how on that topic, and only then and afterwards we let her breed. So there are several aspects. Of course, each facility has got its limits, so that's why we need to respect it. I think that our facility is big enough for like 15 chimpanzees, not more. What we would like to do within the EEP as a rule is that the minimum a group should be 3.5. That means 3 adult males, 5 adult females and their young, which we think is the normal social unit that is fine. I mean the smallest one, of course, but that should be the minimum.
With its in situ and ex situ programs, Ostrava Zoo is making a significant contribution to the preservation of genetic diversity and the long-term survival of species under threat. I asked František Přibrský, head of the zoo's in situ conservation department, what he considers to be Ostrava Zoo's biggest success in recent years.
I think it's in general how the zoo changed during the last 20 years, because I'm not from Ostrava actually, so I'm not saying it because I'm super Ostrava patriot, but everyone who visited the Ostrava 20 years ago and visited now, they say that it's totally different zoo. And from all the point of the view, how it looks like, that it's not only the zoo but it's also botanic park. From the point of what is the approach to animal breeding, for example, that it's very professional. We don't cuddle the animals, we don't take the babies from their mothers because it's not natural. We have big natural group of the primates and we let them to live how they live in the nature with pluses and minuses. And so the breeding is perfect, the area is perfect, and also the support of the conservation in situ is growing. And I think that this zoo is one of the best in Czech Republic, but not only, also in the Europe, from all different point of view. And I think this is the bigger success. Not only one thing, but how the zoo changed during last 20-30 years is amazing.
Thank you to Daniela Lazarova for her report, and with that we have reached the end of today's program. Thank you for joining us. My name is Romana Grajcerová, and until next time, goodbye or naslyšenou.